Love recognizes no barriers, they say, and in this enchanting tale of destiny, Sophie Anderson's story proves that love, like art, knows no bounds. When this struggling single mother drifts to sleep on a life-changing flight, she couldn't imagine how one mysterious letter would become the first brushstroke of her new beginning. Just as love jumps hurdles and leaps fences, Sophie's journey takes her through the barriers of loss and loneliness, only to discover that hope has been quietly painting her path all along. Through the legacy of her late husband and an unexpected reunion with his best friend, successful CEO Alex Reed, Sophie learns that destiny's masterpiece often comes from life's scattered pieces. As love penetrates the walls she built around her heart, she finds herself creating more than just an art school for underprivileged children. She's creating a masterpiece of second chances. Her story reminds us that true love, arriving full of hope at its destination, has the extraordinary power to transform lives, bridge past and present, and complete the family portrait she thought was forever broken. Sophie Anderson pressed her forehead against the cool airplane window. Her worn, leather-bound sketchbook balanced precariously on her lap. The lights of the city below twinkled like scattered stars, reminding her of the glitter Lucy had spilled all over their tiny apartment last week. Her daughter's laughter still echoed in her ears, along with her parting words, "Draw me angels, Mom." Her fingers traced the edge of her last sketch, a whimsical illustration of a little girl surrounded by floating butterflies, much like the ones she'd drawn for her students at Lincoln Elementary. Teaching art to children who couldn't afford basic supplies had become her life's mission, even if it barely paid the bills. The memory of their faces lighting up when she brought in new colored pencils made every sacrifice worth it. The flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their descent into San Francisco. Sophie clutched her portfolio tighter, feeling the weight of everything riding on tomorrow's interview. The Berkeley Hills Academy position would change everything: proper art supplies, a real salary, health insurance for Lucy. But the competition would be fierce. Elite private schools didn't often take chances on public school teachers. A soft sigh escaped her lips as she remembered emptying her savings account for this ticket. $300, the exact amount she'd been saving for Lucy's birthday present. Her sister Janet had called her crazy, but Sophie knew she had to try. Not just for herself, but for Lucy, and for all the children who found their voice through art. "Would you like some water, ma'am?" The flight attendant's kind voice startled her from her thoughts. "Oh, yes, thank you." Sophie accepted the plastic cup, noticing how her hands trembled slightly. In the reflection of the window, she caught a glimpse of herself, honey blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, tired blue eyes and paint stains on her sleeve that never quite washed out. So different from the polished professionals in first class. Her mind drifted to the morning's goodbye. Lucy, still in her unicorn pajamas, arms wrapped tight around Sophie's neck. "Promise you'll come back tomorrow, Mummy." Those big brown eyes, so like her father's, had nearly broken Sophie's resolve. "I'll be back before you know it, sweetheart. And I'll draw you so many pictures, you'll need a new wall to hang them all." Janet had practically pushed her out the door. "Go, Soph. You've put everyone else first since David died. It's time you took a chance on yourself." David. 4 years had passed since the accident, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. He would have loved seeing Lucy's artistic streak emerging, would have encouraged Sophie's dreams of making art accessible to every child. The plane hit a pocket of turbulence, jolting Sophie back to reality. She flipped through her portfolio one last time, detailed lesson plans, student artwork samples, and her own illustrations. The children's book she'd been working on in stolen moments between teaching and motherhood was tucked in the back. The Girl Who Painted Stars. Lucy's story, really. A tale of a child who brought color to a gray world. Exhaustion crept in as the cabin lights dimmed. Sophie hadn't slept properly in days, too anxious about the interview. Her eyelids grew heavy as she watched the clouds drift past. Just a short nap, she told herself, setting an alarm on her phone. As consciousness faded, her last thought was of Lucy's smile and the way her daughter saw magic in everything, even in their tiny apartment with its leaky faucet and creaky floors. Maybe that's what art was really about, finding beauty in unexpected places. She didn't notice the elegant woman in first class watching her with knowing eyes, nor did she see the careful way this observer placed an envelope in her bag while she slept. The letter that would change everything was already making its way into her life, as quietly as a butterfly landing on an open flower. The gentle shake of turbulence stirred Sophie from her sleep. Her sketchbook had slipped, pages of drawings scattered across her lap like fallen leaves. As she gathered them, a particular sketch caught her eye, one she'd drawn of David and Lucy at the beach from their last family vacation. The memory hit her with unexpected force. "Daddy, look at my sandcastle." Lucy had been barely 2, her chubby hands patting wet sand into wobbly towers. David had scooped her up, spinning her around as the setting sun painted them both in golden light. "You're my little artist," he'd said, not knowing it would be their last summer together. Sophie blinked back tears, tucking the sketch away. The cabin lights were dimmed now, creating an intimate cocoon of darkness. In first class, she could make out the silhouettes of passengers who seemed to inhabit a different world, women in designer suits, men with expensive watches that caught the faint light. Their world felt as distant as the stars outside her window. A child's cry from somewhere in the cabin pierced the quiet, reminding her painfully of Lucy. She reached for her phone, finding a new text from Janet. "Lucy's fine, made her favorite mac and cheese. She's sleeping with your old paint shirt under her pillow. Stop worrying and focus on tomorrow." But how could she not worry? Every mother in economy class probably carried the same weight, the constant mental calculations of time versus money, dreams versus responsibility. Sophie watched a flight attendant drift past, carrying a tray of champagne to first class. 4 years of single motherhood had taught her to count every penny, to make art supplies last just 1 more week, to smile through parent-teacher conferences even when her own checking account was overdrawn. Her gaze drifted to the man in 3A, visible through the gap between seats. He sat alone, laptop casting a blue glow on his sharp features. Something about his presence felt familiar, though she couldn't place why. He looked important, the kind of person who belonged in the world she was trying to enter tomorrow. The Berkeley Hills Academy interview loomed in her mind. "We're looking for someone innovative," the email had said, "someone who can bring our art program into the modern age while maintaining classical foundations." Sophie had spent weeks preparing, studying their curriculum, developing new program ideas. But would they see past her public school background? Would they understand that teaching art to children who couldn't afford crayons had taught her more than any prestigious position could? She pulled out her lesson plans again, the pages worn from constant review. Her proposed program combined traditional techniques with community outreach, bringing privileged students to teach art alongside her in underfunded schools. "Art builds bridges," she'd written in her proposal. "It speaks when words fail, heals when medicine cannot, and connects hearts across any divide." The plane shuddered again, and Sophie's hand instinctively went to the silver pendant at her neck. "David's last gift. For my 2 artists," the inscription read. He had given it to her the morning of the accident, proud of the mother-daughter painting session he'd witnessed the night before. A movement in first class caught her attention. The elegant woman she'd noticed earlier was making her way to the restroom, her designer heels clicking softly on the carpet. As she passed, their eyes met briefly. The woman's smile was warm, knowing, almost maternal. Something about it made Sophie's chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. Fatigue began to creep back in, her body heavy with the weight of hope and fear intertwined. The interview wasn't just about a job. It was about proving that dreams don't die with tragedy, that a single mom from a small apartment could build a better future, that art could truly change lives. As sleep reclaimed her, Sophie's thoughts drifted to Lucy's latest artwork, proudly displayed on their refrigerator. A family portrait, Sophie, Lucy, and a space where David used to be, now filled with what Lucy called her guardian angel. The innocence of a child's hope, drawn in crayon and love. She didn't feel the gentle touch as someone slipped an envelope into her bag. Didn't notice the careful way it was positioned so she would find it upon waking. In her dreams, Sophie was already teaching in a sun-filled classroom, watching children discover the magic of creation, while somewhere above, David smiled down on his two artists. The plane continued its journey through the night sky, carrying not just passengers but dreams, hopes, and a letter that would soon bridge two worlds that seemed as far apart as the stars themselves. Sophie woke to the captain's announcement of their final descent. As she reached for her bag, something slipped from its side pocket, a cream-colored envelope, the paper thick and expensive to the touch. Her name was written in elegant cursive across the front, the ink a deep midnight blue. Her heart skipped a beat. This wasn't hers. With trembling fingers she opened the envelope, the paper making a soft whisper as she unfolded the letter inside. Dear Sophie, some people paint with brushes, but you paint with kindness. I saw you last month at the homeless shelter on Pine Street, teaching those children how to draw their dreams. You gave them more than art lessons. You gave them hope. One little boy said you made him feel like Picasso, even though he'd never held a paintbrush before that day. Sophie's breath caught. She remembered that boy Tommy, with his crooked smile and worn shoes. He'd drawn his future home, complete with a garden full of butterflies. Life has a way of testing those with the biggest hearts. 4 years ago, you faced an unimaginable loss, yet you continued to pour love into the world through your art and teaching. Your daughter Lucy is growing up watching her mother change lives, one crayon at a time. Tears blurred her vision. How did this person know about David? About Lucy? Inside this envelope, you'll find 2 things: a key card to the Four Seasons Hotel and enough money to give you breathing room. Before you let pride stop you from accepting this gift, remember that sometimes angels appear in unexpected ways. David always said you were too stubborn to accept help. Her hands shook as she found the key card, and her heart nearly stopped 10 crisp $100 bills. The letter continued. The hotel is 2 blocks from Berkeley Hills Academy. In your room, you'll find everything you need for tomorrow. This isn't charity, Sophie. Think of it as an investment in all the future artists you'll inspire. Sometimes the universe conspires to help those who help others. You've spent years being everyone else's angel. Perhaps it's time to let someone be yours. Take this leap of faith. Lucy needs to see that dreams can come true, not just in her drawings, but in real life too. Someone who sees your light. P.S. Check your phone at 8 a.m. tomorrow. There's a car waiting to take you to your interview. Sophie read the letter 3 times, her mind spinning. The plane was descending now, the lights of San Francisco twinkling below like spilled glitter, so much like Lucy's art projects. She thought about refusing, about finding the letter's author and returning everything. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the mention of David, or the thought of Lucy, or perhaps the pure exhaustion of trying to be strong for so long. The flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their arrival. In first class, passengers were gathering their belongings, but Sophie barely noticed. Her attention was caught by a small postscript she'd missed at the bottom of the letter. Your husband once told me his biggest dream was to see you run your own art school someday. He believed in you more than you know. So do I. A tear splashed onto the expensive paper. David had never told her about that dream, at least not directly. But he had always pushed her to think bigger, to reach higher. As the plane touched down, Sophie carefully folded the letter and tucked it into her sketchbook, right next to her drawing of Lucy's angels. Outside, the San Francisco fog was rolling in, shrouding the city in mystery, much like the one surrounding her anonymous benefactor. For the first time since David's death, Sophie felt something she'd almost forgotten, the weightless sensation of possibility, of doors opening instead of closing. Maybe, just maybe, this was the universe answering all those prayers she'd whispered while Lucy slept. The seatbelt sign dinged off and passengers began to rise. Sophie remained seated, one hand on the letter, the other clutching her pendant. "Okay, David," she whispered. "I'm taking that leap." The Four Seasons lobby gleamed with understated luxury, all marble floors and soft lighting that made everything glow like a dream. Sophie stood frozen just inside the entrance, her worn messenger bag clutched to her chest, feeling as out of place as a watercolor in a digital gallery. "Miss Anderson?" The concierge's voice was warm, professional. "We've been expecting you. Please, follow me." As they walked to the elevator, Sophie caught her reflection in the polished brass doors. Paint-stained jeans, comfortable teaching sweater, hair escaping its bun. Around her, business people in tailored suits moved with the confidence of belonging. "Your suite is on the 25th floor, the concierge explained, using a special key card. The Executive Arts Suite." The elevator doors opened directly into her room, and Sophie's artist's eye was immediately overwhelmed with beauty. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the San Francisco skyline like a living canvas, the Bay Bridge twinkling in the distance. But it was what waited inside that made her gasp. An entire section of the suite had been transformed into an artist's studio. A professional easel stood near the windows, surrounded by premium art supplies, Prismacolor pencils, Faber-Castell pastels, and Winsor & Newton watercolors, things she'd only dreamed of owning. On the easel was another cream-colored note. "Every artist needs the right tools to shine. These are yours to keep." Her fingers trembled as they traced the spine of a leather-bound sketchbook, its pages thick and inviting. Beside it lay a tablet, the latest iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil, already loaded with professional drawing apps. The bedroom held another surprise. Laid out on the king-size bed was a dress that made Sophie's heart stop. Simple but elegant, in a deep azure blue that reminded her of summer skies. The designer label made her dizzy. She'd seen this dress in a magazine, knowing she could never afford it. A small card rested on top. "Because every artist should feel as beautiful as their work. Your interview outfit awaits. A friend?" Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope the room meets your expectations. Breakfast will be served at 7 a.m. Rest well, Sophie. Tomorrow is the first day of your new life." She sank onto the plush bed, emotions overwhelming her. When was the last time someone had taken care of her this way? Since David's death. She'd been everyone's rock. Lucy's mother, her student's teacher, her sister's strong shoulder. In the bathroom, she found her favorite shampoo and bath products. How did they know? And something else that brought fresh tears, a framed drawing. It was Lucy's latest masterpiece, the one from their refrigerator door, somehow transported here, but professionally matted and framed now, making her daughter's art look museum-worthy. The sound of her phone ringing startled her. It was Janet. "Soft? Are you okay? Did you make it?" "Janet," Sophie's voice cracked. "Something incredible is happening. I don't understand it, but..." "What? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. It's just..." She described the letter, the hotel, the gifts. "It feels like a fairy tale. Should I be scared?" Janet was quiet for a moment. "You know what this sounds like? It sounds like someone saw how hard you've worked, how much you've sacrificed. Maybe it's time to let good things happen, so..." As if on cue, another text arrived. "Check the terrace. Sometimes inspiration comes with chocolate." Sophie stepped onto the private terrace to find a dessert cart waiting, hot chocolate, her favorite comfort drink, and a plate of chocolate-covered strawberries. But what caught her eye was a small painting propped against the cup. A watercolor of a woman teaching art to children, painted with such detail she recognized herself immediately. The style was hauntingly familiar. A memory stirred. David had a friend in college, an artist, who'd gone on to become something important. She couldn't quite remember, But there was something about that painting style. Her phone buzzed one final time for the night. Sweet dreams, Sophie. Tomorrow, art meets destiny. She curled up in the luxurious bed, hugging Lucy's framed drawing close. For the first time in 4 years, she felt something shift inside her, as if the colors of her world, long faded to gentle pastels, were slowly brightening again. Outside, San Francisco twinkled like a canvas scattered with stars, while somewhere in the city, someone who knew her heart was painting the next chapter of her story. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room in golden light. Sophie stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing herself in the azure blue dress. Her honey-blonde hair fell in soft waves courtesy of the salon appointment that had mysteriously appeared on her phone schedule this morning. At exactly 8 a.m., her phone chimed. "Your car is waiting, but first, check the portfolio on the desk." She found a sleek leather portfolio, far more professional than her worn one. Inside, her lesson plans and artwork had been expertly organized and enhanced, with additional materials she hadn't seen before: letters of recommendation from parents at the homeless shelter, photographs of her teaching, and press clippings about her community art programs she didn't even know existed. The hotel lobby was quiet when she descended. A distinguished driver held a sign, "Miss Anderson, Berkeley Hills Academy." But instead of heading toward Berkeley, the car turned toward the financial district. "I'm sorry," Sophie said, anxiety creeping into her voice, "but my interview—" "Miss Anderson," the driver smiled knowingly in the rearview mirror. "Your interview has been relocated. Mr. Reed's instructions were very specific." "Mr. Reed?" The name triggered something in her memory, but before she could place it, the car pulled up to a gleaming skyscraper, Reed Innovations headquarters. The elevator whisked her to the top floor, her heart pounding with each ascending floor. The doors opened to reveal a stunning art gallery instead of an office. Paintings lined the walls, children's artwork professionally framed. She gasped as she recognized her students' work from the homeless shelter. "Beautiful, aren't they?" A deep voice came from behind her. "Children see the world with such pure clarity." Sophie turned to find herself face to face with Alexander Reed, one of the most influential tech billionaires in the world. But that wasn't what made her breath catch. It was his eyes. She knew those eyes. "Alex," she whispered. "Alex from college." He smiled softly, the same smile she remembered from countless study sessions with David. "Hello, Sophie. You're the one who else would know about David's secret dream for you? Or about how you take your hot chocolate with 3 marshmallows? Or that Lucy's favorite bedtime story is The Girl Who Painted Stars, the one you're writing?" Sophie's legs felt weak. Alex guided her to a nearby bench, positioned before a large canvas covered with a cloth. "David was my best friend," Alex continued, his voice gentle. "That day before the accident, he called me. He was so excited about the art school idea, creating a place where every child, regardless of their background, could discover their creativity." Tears welled in Sophie's eyes as Alex went on. "After we lost him, I wanted to help, but I knew your pride, your determination to make it on your own. So I watched from a distance, saw you teaching at the shelter, inspiring children who had nothing to dream in colors. Then last month, I saw Lucy at the park with Janet. She was drawing angels just like you used to draw in college." He stood, moving to the covered canvas. "That's when I knew it was time. David always said timing was everything, in art and life." With a gentle pull, he revealed the painting. Sophie's hand flew to her mouth. It was David's last unfinished work, the one that had disappeared after the accident. But now it was complete. In it, Sophie stood in a sun-filled studio, surrounded by children painting, while a little girl with Lucy's features reached for a butterfly made of light. "How did you—" "I bought it at the estate sale, kept it safe until the right moment. The completion is my work. David taught me more than just business strategies in college." Alex knelt before her, taking her trembling hands in his. Berkeley Hills Academy was never the real interview, Sophie. I'm offering you something bigger. This building's west wing is empty. I want you to create your art school here. Full funding, complete creative control. A place where every child can discover their inner artist, regardless of their ability to pay. Sophie's mind spun. But why? Because David was right about you. Because your daughter deserves to see her mother's dreams come true. Because art saved my life in college when I was just a scholarship kid with too much ambition and not enough direction. And because, he paused, emotion thick in his voice, sometimes the best way to honor those we've lost is to help the dreams they believed in become reality. Through her tears, Sophie saw the same paint-stained hands she remembered from college hidden beneath the expensive suit, was still the artist who used to share their studio space. The choice is yours, Alex said softly. But before you decide, there's someone else who'd like to say hello. The gallery doors opened and Lucy burst in, followed by a beaming Janet. Mommy, did you see my drawings on the wall? Sophie caught her daughter in her arms, looking questioningly at Alex. He smiled. Every artist needs their biggest fan at their first gallery showing. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of emotions. Sophie sat in her temporary office in the Reed Innovations building, surrounded by floor plans and curriculum drafts, her mind torn between excitement and overwhelming doubt. Lucy had taken to spending afternoons in the empty West Wing, her crayons creating masterpieces on large sheets of paper Alex had provided. "Mommy, can I have my art class here?" she'd ask, her eyes shining with the same enthusiasm David once had. But at night, alone in the luxury hotel suite, Sophie's fears would surface. The morning paper had run a story about Alex Reed's mysterious new art education initiative, with speculation about the unknown teacher who had caught his attention. Her phone had been buzzing with messages from curious parents and colleagues. "You're overthinking again," Janet said during their daily call. "I can hear it in your voice." "Am I, though?" Sophie paced the terrace, watching the city lights flicker. "This is Alex Reed, Janet. He moves in circles we've never even dreamed of. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I'm not enough?" A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Alex stood there, sleeves rolled up, paint stains on his expensive shirt, looking more like the college art student she remembered than a billionaire CEO. "I thought you might be having one of your late-night doubt sessions," he said, holding up 2 cups of hot chocolate. "Some things never change." They settled on the terrace, the night air cool against their skin. "David used to say you were your own worst critic," Alex mused, passing her a cup. "Remember the senior art show? You almost pulled your piece at the last minute." Sophie smiled despite herself. "And David literally sat in front of it all night so I couldn't take it down. It won first place." "This is different, Alex. This isn't just about me anymore. Lucy, the students, their families, they'll all be depending on me. The media will be watching. Your board of directors are already impressed by your proposal," Alex interrupted. "Sophie, look at me." She met his gaze, seeing not the powerful CEO, but the friend who had shared their small college studio, who had been best man at her wedding, who had disappeared into his work after David's death, just as she had disappeared into her teaching. "You've spent 4 years proving you can do everything alone," he said softly, "but David never wanted that for you. He wanted partnerships, collaboration, community. Remember what you used to say in college, art is a conversation between souls." "I'm scared," she whispered, finally voicing her deepest fear. "Not of failing, but of succeeding. Of letting someone help again. Of—" she hesitated. "Of feeling anything beyond being Lucy's mom and my student's teacher." Alex was quiet for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Lucy drew this today. She asked me to give it to you when you were sad." The drawing showed 3 figures, Sophie, Lucy, and Alex, surrounded by butterflies and hearts. At the top, in childish handwriting, "My family making art together." Children see truth so clearly, Alex said gently. They don't worry about social circles or board meetings. They just know when something feels right. Sophie traced the drawing with trembling fingers. When did you know? About the school? About helping us? The moment I saw you at the shelter, teaching those kids, you had the same light in your eyes that David always talked about. I realized I'd spent 4 years hiding in my success, just like you'd been hiding in your struggle. Maybe, he paused, choosing his words carefully, maybe we both need to stop hiding. The city hummed below them, a gentle reminder of the world waiting to be changed. In her mind, Sophie could almost hear David's laugh, see his encouraging smile. What if I say yes, she whispered, to all of it, the school, the changes, the not hiding anymore? Alex's hand found hers, warm and paint-stained like in their college days. Then we'll build something beautiful, together. Lucy's drawing fluttered in the evening breeze, a child's vision of possibility made real in crayon and love. The grand opening of the Reed Art School was a day Sophie had dreamed of for years, yet it felt surreal as she stood at the entrance, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nerves. The building had been transformed into a vibrant space filled with color, laughter, and the unmistakable energy of creativity. Children of all backgrounds were already bustling about, their hands covered in paint, their faces lit with joy. Lucy stood proudly beside her mother, wearing a small artist's smock with junior teacher embroidered on the pocket, Alex's surprise gift. She was showing other children her favorite corner of the studio, where butterflies painted by shelter kids decorated the walls, each one carrying a dream written in bright colors. Ready? Alex appeared beside them, his CO suit traded for casual clothes splattered with paint. He'd been up since dawn, helping the teachers arrange the final details. Sophie looked around at what they'd created together. The West Wing now housed 15 bright studios, each dedicated to different forms of art. There was a digital art lab, a sculpture garden, and even a small gallery where student works would be displayed alongside professional artists. But her favorite spot was the David's Dreams Room, a special studio for children from shelters and low-income families, fully stocked with supplies and filled with David's spirit of generosity. As families began arriving for the opening ceremony, Sophie felt tears welling up. Among the crowd were faces she knew from the shelter, now dressed in their best, their children clutching new art supplies provided by the Reed Foundation. Janet was there too, manning the welcome desk with proud efficiency. "Mom, look!" Lucy tugged at her hand, pointing to the wall behind the main entrance. There hung the completed version of David's last painting, but now accompanied by a new piece, a collaborative work Sophie and Alex had created together, showing the school as it was today, filled with children and color and hope. Alex stepped to the podium, his voice warm with emotion. 4 years ago, a dear friend shared his dream with me, a dream of a place where art could change lives. Today, that dream becomes reality, not through my vision, but through the extraordinary heart and talent of Sophie Anderson. As Sophie took her place at the podium, she saw not just an audience, but a community. Teachers she'd hired from diverse backgrounds, board members who'd caught her vision of accessible art education, and most importantly, children whose eyes shone with creative possibility. "Art saved my life twice," she began, her voice steady. "First in college, when I discovered who I was through creating, and again after loss, when teaching art to others gave me purpose. Today we open these doors not just as a school, but as a home for dreams, a sanctuary for creativity, and a tribute to love that transcends time." Lucy slipped her small hand into Sophie's, while Alex stood supportively on her other side. In that moment, Sophie felt David's presence strongly, not as a ghost of the past, but as a bridge that had led her to this new chapter. Later that evening, after the last guests had left, Sophie found Alex in David's Dreams room, adding finishing touches to a mural the children had started. "He would have loved this," Alex said softly, stepping back to admire their work. "Does love it," Sophie corrected, taking his paint-stained hand in hers. Through every child who discovers their talent here, through every dream that takes flight. Lucy appeared in the doorway, yawning but happy. Can we have hot chocolate with marshmallows, all three of us? Sophie and Alex exchanged smiles. Some traditions, Alex said, lifting Lucy into his arms, are meant to be shared. As they walked toward their future together, the walls of the Reed Art School seemed to pulse with possibility, each heartbeat a color, each dream a masterpiece waiting to be created. David's last painting watched over them, its butterflies now joined by real ones, drawn by countless children, each carrying hope on their wings into tomorrow.